again, my little yarnivores and spiderettes. Fiber Spider back again with another tutorial just for you. And today I'm going to show you how to knit this really easy and versatile poncho. Yep. And this video is sponsored by Lion Brand. Thank you so very much, Lion Brand, for your continued support and patronage. I very much appreciate that. Thank you very much. And today, yes, we are using your yarn. This is Lion Brand's Comfy Cotton Blend. Isn't it gorgeous? Absolutely love it. All right, and also this is the colorway of Chai Latte, which, as a little side note, is a favorite drink of mine, aside from coffee. Typically, I will be honest, typically I do not care much for cotton. However, this is a cotton blend. It is very easy to work with. It is really soft, and as you can see, it is very flexible. Using the right size needle, it has a remarkable drape, okay? Cotton is not just for dishcloths, okay? And also I thought that the cotton would be a nice choice for the warmer weather approaching, yet still wearing something fashionable. And for the further specs on this yarn, it is approximately 392 yards, and it is 50% cotton and 50% polyester. So it's a good blend, and it is a, whoa, focus. There we go. It's a weight of 3. I would say it's, I don't know, I want to say it's like a thick weight of 3. It's certainly, I would say, thicker than their mandala, which definitely is a thin weight of 3. Now, the recommended needle size is a size 7. I have a tendency of knitting tightly, so I used a size 10 knitting needle. And as far as the knitting needles, well, let's get into that. Okay, getting to the knitting needles, I'm going to be using my Chiaogu circular knitting needles. These are an interchangeable set, which is ideal for a project like this. You can use ones that are fixed in place, that's not a problem, but you are going to need multiple sizes as far as the lengths are concerned. These are 16 inches long. These are the 4-inch tips. I also have ones that are 5-inch tips, but they will not work if you want a 16-inch length. And like I said, these are my size 10s. Now, for the ribbing at the neckline, which is where we're going to start, which is why you need 16 inches, so that you can fit all of your stitches on your needles. You could start off with a smaller size, say like an 8 or a 9, and then for the rest of your project, go up to a 10. Typically, that's what people do. I tend to break rules, so I'm just going to be using the size 10s throughout, because that way I will not have any concern as to whether or not I can fit this over my noggin. Now, as far as the various lengths, it's best, in my personal opinion, it's best if you have a nice range of lengths. So this is 16 inches in total. Then I would say, maybe 24, 30, somewhere around there. And then for the longest size, I had about, I think it was 60 inches for my circulars. I basically attached the cords to each other. Very convenient with this particular set. They do come with attachments so that you can make the cords longer. So that being said, you will need definitely to start off with the 16 inches and then work your way up. Now, the reason why I like to have the 60 inches is because that way I can really spread out the stitches on my needle. You could probably get by with 30 inches or like 36 inches thereabouts. You could probably get by with that. But it's really a matter of personal preference and taste. You can scrunch a lot of stitches on these needles and then move up to a fairly significant size larger. It's a matter of, trying to finagle things, going to be totally honest. But that being said, you are also going to need some stitch markers. They will help. They're not 100% necessary, but they do help. Okay, also, as far as the pattern for this in general, like I said, it's very, very versatile, okay? As far as the casting on of the initial stitches, I wanted my collar to be very close to my neck. You could have a very large neck opening so that it drapes more on your shoulders and further away from your neck. That's totally up to you, and that's totally fine. The basis is that you need an even number of stitches for your neckline because we're going to be doing a 1-by-1 ribbing for the neckline. And I find that it's easier still if you have an even number of stitches and then tack on another 2 stitches, okay? And those 2 stitches are going to be the stitches in between where we do the eyelets. So you have 1 stitch on this side, 1 stitch on the back side, and you have an even number of stitches on the one side and the other side. This will make more sense as we go along. Now, for me, what I did was I cast on a total of 66 stitches. You may want more, you may want less. It's totally up to you. So this isn't so much a direct pattern. This is more of a formula on how to create a basic poncho. Now, the beauty, I know I'm rambling, but I want to be thorough. The beauty of this particular piece is that it's a blank canvas. Technically speaking, you can do whatever you want to do as far as patterns and lace work within this sort of blank canvas of space here. You could incorporate many different patterns. Just keep in mind that, yes, you are going to be increasing every other row 2 stitches per side. This side and this side, 2 stitches per side. So if you are going to be doing a specific pattern, you need to keep in mind the increase, or more fun than that, you could go an organic lace route. And I did do a while back, it was sort of a free-form organic lace sort of knit along. And you know what? I'm going to put a link to that playlist down below. And so if you're, in the mood to create something completely unique using the sort of organic crazy lace technique, you can do that. And you can really make this into something quite unique and beautiful. And that's the whole idea, right? So that being said, let's get started with the cast on. Okay, so for the cast on, we're going to start with a slip knot as per usual. Now, you could technically do a long tail cast on, but I find that the knitted cast on is a bit looser and a bit more flexible, which is a good thing, I believe, as far as the neckline is concerned. So that's what we're going to do. So basically, you're going in, making sure that you're using your working yarn, not your tail. I've done that many, many times. So you're going in to that stitch as if to knit, wrap the yarn around, and pull up your loop, and then going in around through the back, and 2 stitches. Going around the back, pull the loop up, going around the back, and we've got 3. And as I said before, I'm going to be casting on a total of 66 stitches. You can do, of course, like I said before, however many you want. Just be sure that it is an even number of stitches, and then to make it a little bit easier, add an additional 2 stitches because personally, I just find that that makes it a little bit easier. I mean, technically speaking, yeah, you could do, for a very small neckline, you could do, say, 30 stitches and then subtract 2, you've got 28. All right, so you've got 14 on either side. Me, it's just the way my brain works, So 66 worked out just fine for me with the size 10 needles. Now, keep in mind if you use different size needles, different yarn, your gauge is also different than mine, your tension. So that being said, you may have to do some experimenting to see if you're going to have the right number of stitches for it to fit over your head and make a nice collar. So there may be a little bit of trial and error initially, okay? That being said, I'm going to keep on doing my casting on until I have 66 stitches, and then we will proceed to the next step. Okay. All right, so as you can see, I have all of my stitches raring to go. And one thing that you need to be very, very careful about is making sure that your stitches are not twisted. And what that means is, I'm about to do it right now, is that, you've got this twist of stitches. All of your stitches should be on the same side of the needle. See, they're all on the inside here. So I'm going to fix this right now, because otherwise you are going to end up with a very unusual garment. Okay, make sure that your stitches are not twisted. Okay, and I've got my little tail of yarn over here, and I've got my working yarn over here. And so now we're going to start in on the ribbing. And of course, if you have an alternative that you prefer, by all means, go for it. I like the 1x1 ribbing because I think it sort of frames the piece rather nicely. And also put on your little stitch marker to mark the beginning and end of your round. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? And it's going to be very, very, very simple. It's just a knit purl 1x1 ribbing. So I always like to start with the knit stitch first. So going into that first stitch with a knit stitch, and let me snug this up a little bit. Grabbing my tail, snug that up. Okay, so we did a knit stitch, and now yarn to the front to do a purl stitch. Like so, through the front, around, and it's a little bit tricky initially on the first round because your stitches haven't been primed yet. But I can tighten this up a little bit. All right, and then to the back. Also, 66 stitches, you gotta stretch them out a little bit on your needles. Could always do more though. All right, and then a knit stitch. There we go. And then a purl. And then to the back. Do a knit. And then to the front so that we can do a purl. So it doesn't look like much at the moment, admittedly, but as we keep working, we will end up with a nice bit of 1x1 ribbing. So let's do a couple more stitches together. Sort of scoop my stitches just a little bit, make it a little easier. Okay, so we're up to a purl, so yarn's in the front, through the front of the stitch, yarn around, stitch to the back and off, yarn to the back, and knit, yarn to the front, and purl, yarn to the back, and knit, yarn to the front, and purl, yarn to the back, scoot your stitches. And honestly, after the first round, like I said, it is a lot easier because the stitches have already sort of been established. So we did our purl, so let's do a knit, do a couple more. Yarn to the front, and purl, yarn to the back, and knit, yarn to the front, and purl. And really, that's all there is to it for the most part. So we've got our knit stitches and we've got our purl stitches where we've got that little bump in the front there. And so basically just keep knitting all the way around, and I'm going to show you when we get to the beginning of our round how we just continue on for the sake of our color. Okay, so I'm going to knit my way around, and when I get up to about this point, I will meet back up with you. Be right back. Okay, so I've done my knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl all the way around. I've got a couple more stitches left, and I like to be thorough, so let's finish up this round together. So I did a purl last, so yep, I'm going to do a knit. And a purl. And a knit. And yes, you guessed it, a purl. And so now we have one completely finished round. And yes, there is a bit of a length in between there. You can fix that later on by when you're sewing in your tail. That's not a problem. So we just did our last purl stitch. Transfer your marker to your other needle, and then we're going to continue on in the exact same fashion as we started with a knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl. Just keep doing knits in the knit stitches and purls in the purl stitches. So start right off. With a knit, and so you can see that little itty bitty bump of yarn right there. That's a purl. So you're just following suit with what you've already established, and your stitches will slide a lot easier now that they've already been, like I said, they've already been established as to what they are. So next is a knit stitch. And then a purl. and so on and so forth for really as many rounds as you want to for your neckline, for your collar. Personally, I would say, between 6 and 12 rounds, roughly speaking. I would suggest perhaps, an inch to inch and a half for your collar. Again, it is a matter of personal taste and preference. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just keep doing my knit purl 1x1 ribbing for a number of rounds. At the end of each round, just transfer your marker, and when you feel that you have, inch and a half or so of your ribbing, stop at the marker, and then I will show you how to proceed from there, okay? And I shall return. All right, see you in a bit. All right, so as you can see, I've been knitting along with my knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. Here are the purl stitches, and here are the knit stitches. And also, as you can see, like I said, it gets a lot more fluid and easy once you have a bit of fabric. You just have to get over the proverbial hump. All right, so now, if you are using a smaller size needle, excuse me, if you are using a smaller sized needle for the ribbing, now is the time to swap out for the larger size, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to prepare the rest of the piece by just doing a knit round. We're not going to be doing any more ribbing, at least not at the moment. So just going to move my little marker over, and then regardless of whether it is a knit or a purl stitch, you just knit every stitch all the way around for this one round. And personally, I think even though it's not, I would say, entirely necessary, it does sort of get the fresh palette that will be our poncho ready. Also, of course, if you are changing your needle sizes, this is a great way of getting the rest of the piece prepared for the change, if you will. Now, if you have a set of interchangeable needles, quite simply, all you would have to do is, scooch the needle, and right here is where you can screw the needle in. And so, yeah, you could just change your needles out. Or if you have fixed circular needles, what you could do is just sort of slide, the stitch off of one needle onto the fresh needle, or you could knit the stitches onto the new needles. Whichever method you prefer is totally fine. Just like to give you guys the information for the options that are open to you. So yeah, for this round, quite simply, just knit every stitch all the way around, and then the next round, that's where the fun begins. So I'm going to do the rest of this round off camera, and then when I'm ready for where the fun begins, I will meet back up with you. Okay, I will be right back, and then we'll get started. Okay, almost forgot one more thing is I didn't do the entire round yet, but yes, I almost forgot one more thing. So you have your starting marker. Right now on this round is the ideal opportunity to place your second marker. I already did it, but what you want is to have an even number of stitches on the one side and the other side. So for me, after my initial marker, okay, it was 33 stitches, then placed my marker, and then I did another 33 stitches. So it's an even number on both sides, and that is going to be very, very important for when we do our following round after the knit round. Sorry, almost forgot, but it is a point because you are going to need your 2 markers. After a while, you really won't need them, but initially it's very, very, very important. Okay, back to me doing the rest of this round, and I will meet back up with you. Okay. Okay, so I finished my single round of just knit stitches, and I've got my 2 markers. Now, regardless of whether it's 66 stitches or 106 stitches, really, whatever. For me, like I said, it's 66 stitches, so I've got 33 stitches on this side of the 2 markers and 33 stitches on this side. As long as the numbers are equal, you're good. Okay, so now I have reached my beginning marker, and I know this because there's my starting tail. Before transferring your marker from the left to the right, we are going to start in on creating our eyelets. Yes, it's very, 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 very simple. So all you have to do is quite simply yarn over, then slip your marker, knit the next stitch, and I like to sort of scoot the marker so it's not in the way. So I've got my yarn over, knitting that next stitch, and yarn over again. Ta-da! It's really that simple. And then all you have to do is knit your way to the next marker. Quite simple. And so as to alleviate some of what I am doing, yes, I'm going to knit across to the next marker. Just knit stitches, that's all there is to it. Going to knit my way to the next marker. Now, if you look closely, you can see that we have an eyelet right here and an eyelet right here. Okay, so I'm going to knit my way to the next marker, and we'll do it again. Okay, and I will be right back. Okay, so I'm almost to my second marker, and I just need to knit these last 3 stitches. So basically you're just knitting up to the marker. Like so. And then, again, yarn over from the back to around to the front, slip the marker. Oop, oh dear, my bad. Okay, slip the marker, very good. Then knit the next stitch. I like to have everything just so. So I've got my yarn over, slipped the marker, knitting this next stitch, and then yarn over again. And again, as you can see, if you sort of scooch the stitches apart a little bit, you can see that we now have 2 eyelets. That is the increase. That is what gives this poncho its shape, because we're going to keep adding eyelets every other row. We're going to do this exact same technique of adding eyelets. So what we're effectively doing is on this side of the piece, because we have, you know, our marker here and then one directly below. On this side, we increased 2 stitches because we've got 2 eyelets on this side of the marker, and then we have 2 eyelets on this side of the marker. So we increased it by 4 stitches just now. Okay, so now it's just a matter of knitting until we reach our original marker. That's really all there is to it. Now, as far as what I was saying before about incorporating different stitches and lace work and that sort of thing, as far as the organic sort of free-form lace idea is concerned, the basic principle is very, very simple. In a nutshell, for every eyelet that you create, for every yarn over that you create, you're creating a stitch. So therefore, unless if you want to make your piece grow, 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 and grow, you have to have a corresponding decrease. Now, the eyelets that we're creating at the front and the back next to the markers, those are the increases that are needed for the piece to grow. If you, however, want to create some lace work, well, if you create an eyelet to create some lace, you need a decrease, whether it is a knit two together or a slip knit, or, I mean, there's a lot of decreases that are available. And if you check out that playlist, I go into a very lengthy knit along on how to utilize this idea. And I did a scarf project, which I'm very pleased with. And it was a lot of fun because I invented the lace as I was knitting the scarf. And it was a lot of fun. And I found it to be quite relaxing because as long as you followed that simple rule of for every eyelet that you create, you need a decrease to go with it, your piece will not change size. And for this piece, as long as you leave these eyelets alone, as far as you don't interfere with them, your piece will continue to grow the way that it should. And we are almost to where we need to be. So as you can see, got my tail. So this is the beginning of the round, the beginning and the end. I mean, that's what a circle is, a thing with no beginning and no ending, except when you have a tail of yarn. Yes, I'm yammering, I know. So basically, when you reach the beginning, after you do your eyelets, the next round is just knit stitches. You're not adding anything, you're not taking anything away. It's just knit stitches. And that helps to sort of solidify and stabilize your eyelets. So as you can see, we have a yarn over here, a yarn over here, and we had that one knit stitch. So for the second round, it's just knit stitches. So when you see an eyelet, a yarn over, you just knit it as you would any other stitch. Just be careful that you don't drop that stitch. And then knitting the knit stitch and then knitting this yarn over just as you would any other stitch. Like so. And then when I get to the other marker, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just knit every stitch all the way around. And then when I knit all the way around and I come to my marker again, I will show you what to do. So I'm just going to knit all the way around and I will be right back. Okay. Okay, so I'm almost to the beginning again where I have to create my new eyelets. But before I do that, I wanted to show you something. Now, these two eyelets that we created and we knitted over the yarn overs, it can be a little bit confusing initially, like, all right, which round am I on? Well, if you look at the back side, you can see that there is a little bump right there and right there over the yarn. That's where we knitted over those yarn overs. So if you put down your work and you pick it up again and you're like, which round did I leave off on? Well, as you can see, we knitted over these stitches, therefore we now need to create new yarn overs. Okay, that is, again, little trick. So I just need to knit the next 3 stitches, and then we will create our new eyelets. So let's get that done here. So just going to skedaddly-do to my little marker. Okay, knitting to the marker. Yarn over. Slip the marker. Going to knit that next stitch. Yarn over and continue to knit to the next marker, and then do your yarn over, slip the marker, knit 1, yarn over until you reach this marker again. And then, because we just did our yarn overs, you would knit over those yarn overs. See, we just did our yarn overs. It was this one right here and this one right here. And let's see if I can do this carefully. If you look at the back, there is no bump on this strand of yarn or on this stitch either, because those are yarn overs. So that indicates that we have not knitted over those stitches. So that would be what you would need to do when you reach those stitches. You would need to knit over those. So basically, that is what the basis of the poncho amounts to. You do a round where you're creating your eyelets, and then you do a round where you're just knitting all the way around. It's a two round repeat for pretty much the entire project. It's that easy. Of course, if you want to incorporate a pattern of stitching, whether it's the seed stitch or some lace or what have you, you totally can. Just keep in mind that you have these increases happening with your eyelets, and that's really all there is to it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this swatch a little bit more substantial, and I'm going to just keep doing these 2 rounds over and over and over, my eyelet round and my knit round, until I have a bit more of a substantial swatch. Now, what was I going to say? Basically, this is really one of those projects where, you can, essentially watch TV, get into the zone. You really don't have to think about it too much if you're just going to be doing knit, 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 knit. Now, as far as the amount of yarn, I get asked this question a lot. It will vary, okay? It will totally vary depending upon the yarn that you use, depends on the needle size that you use, the size of your project. Me personally, I think it took about 2 skeins of this yarn. I think it was about 2, might have been into a 3rd skein. I would suggest, if you're going to use this yarn, get 3. Just to be on the safe side, I would say get 3. And if, you don't need the 3rd one for the project, save it for your stash, Also, I have a slight figure, so I really didn't need a rather large piece, but we're all different. So you might need more, you might need less. You know, you could make this for a child. You could make this for a doll. That would be really cute. But of course you would need not quite so many stitches as 66, but you get the idea. Oh, see, I'm already up to my other marker. I just like chit-chatting with you guys. You know, it's what I do. All right, so let me just do this since we're here. So yeah, I would say, 2 to 3 skeins of this yarn. But yeah, I do get asked that question a lot. And quite often, there really isn't a good answer that I can give. Okay, so I'm almost there. So knitting to the marker. There we go. Yarn over, slip the marker, knit the next stitch, yarn over, and then knit to the next marker. And then when I reach that marker, it's just going to be knit all the way around to the beginning again. So that being said, just keep doing these 2 rounds over and over and over again. And when your needle becomes too crowded, see if you can swap over to a longer cord length to accommodate your stitches. I can fit quite a few more stitches on here, believe it or not, because if you sort of scrunch the stitches together, yeah, I can fit quite a few more on here, no problem. But, see if you can swap over to a longer cord length as you go. And I will see you in a bit after I work up more of a swatch, and then I will show you what to do next. Okay, see you in a bit. All right, my dears, unfortunately, we are out of time for this part. However, not to worry, part 2 for this tutorial will be out shortly, and I'm going to show you how you can do the finishing ribbing for the edge and the bind off. It's not difficult, but I do like to be thorough so that it is all understood and clear. All right, that being said, all you have to do from now until then, of course, is to do those 2 rounds over and over and over again. The round where you are doing a yarn over, slip the marker, knit 1, yarn over, knit to the next marker. And you yarn over, slip the marker, knit 1, yarn over. And then do a round with just all knit stitches. Okay, and just keep doing that over and over and over. Now, as you are knitting, of course, you are going to eventually have to swap over to a longer cord length. And also, eventually you're going to get to the point where you're like, is my piece big enough? Well, there is a trick which I would highly, highly recommend, and that is to use a lifeline. I'm going to put a link to that in the description box down below. Basically, in a nutshell, what it amounts to is taking your knitting, and you're taking the knitting off of the needles, but you are putting it onto a really long scrap of yarn, and that way it's not confined to the length of the cord, and it can be spread out and more fluid and flouncy, as the case may be. That way you can really get an idea as to how big your project is. Very important. All right, so yes, I'm going to put a link to that in the description box down below. And you know what to do. Until next time, I want you to stay inspired, stay stitching, stay caffeinated, stay safe. Yes, take care of yourselves and each other. And again, thank you to Lion Brand for sponsoring this video. Thank you so very much. And I will see you in my next video. Bye for now, everybody. Keep stitching.